Good morning. Welcome to our session on mental health or social emotional learning. What's the difference? I do apologize that this is recorded, but I am slightly under the weather this morning and do not want to cough all the way through, but I do want to make sure that you get the information. So my name is Amanda Bruce. I am a consultant for the Ohio Valley Educational Cooperative. I was an MSD teacher in the classroom for a little over 10 years. I am a mom to four, two of my own and two daughters-in-laws. I have two grandbabies. Number three is due in August, so we're super excited. I'm also the sibling of an adult with disabilities and the spouse of an adult with disabilities. Both my husband and my brother have Asperger's syndrome. My brother also has some additional challenges with mental health and Tourette's syndrome. So today, what we really want to do is we want to talk about what's the difference between mental health services and learning and social emotional learning in the school and classroom setting. You'll hear a lot of hot button words in the school system and probably even on the news and through legislation about schools having mental health professionals, but also social emotional learning. So what's the difference? We're going to look at that a little bit. We're also going to talk about some of the resources for community mental health in Kentucky. We have lots of resources across the state to address those issues. We're also going to look at some social emotional learning activities that can be done at school and at home. One of the most important things that we'll talk about with social emotional learning is that is something that needs to occur across the students' environments, both at school, home, and in the community. We're also going to take a very brief look at the impact of compassion fatigue on mental health and social emotional learning. Compassion fatigue is a couple of things. As caregivers, as siblings or spouses or parents of students with special needs, we all experience compassion fatigue at different times. And it's really important to understand how that we have to give ourselves our own oxygen first, or we're not able to best benefit and support our students in this arena. So let's talk about mental health and school. So with mental health in school, there are two primary programs that are supported by the Kentucky Department of Education and that address mental health in our schools. The first is we have a very prevalent suicide prevention and awareness program here in the state. It targets our students at the middle and high school level primarily, but it's good information for everyone. In the PowerPoint handout that you have access to, you will see that I have linked our suicide prevention awareness through the Kentucky Department of Ed site that really talks about suicide in Kentucky, prevention in Kentucky, and some of the training that educators get, in addition to some of the information that can help you understand and help prevent suicide. It's really, really good information. I recommend all educators at middle and high school are required to take an annual training for this. But what I do recommend as a parent is really check out these resources for schools and resources for teens. And the reason I recommend that is because it gives you some resources to help your students. Our students with special needs, whether it's an intellectual disability or an emotional behavioral disability, suicide is real. Depression is real. Anxiety is real. And we need to make sure that we have the right tools to be able to support every person in regards to mental health. So the other big component in Kentucky schools that we look at is the Youth Mental Health First Aid. This is a program in Kentucky. It is also a national program. And what I've linked here for you is the discussion of what mental health first aid is. It's absolutely fantastic. It is good for educators to see as well as parents. It gives you an understanding of mental health first aid. I think probably my favorite quote that is on this page is, let's make mental health first aid as common as CPR. Um, I really think that's critical. I think that that is what we need to do. We need to take the stigma away from mental health. And every person has the potential to have mental health needs, regardless of ability. And I think that's really important. We don't have enough support for those with intellectual disabilities and mental health needs. It's a very complicated process. I can say honestly, with my brother, he has um, autism, Asperger's syndrome, Tourette's, and schizophrenia and bipolar 2. That is a very, very complex situation. It was not easy to get a diagnosis. We had quite a few struggles, in addition to him having some unfortunate incidents of suicidal ideation and suicide attempts. So it's really important that we inform ourselves as parents, as siblings, as educators about mental health first aid, and that every person has the potential to need support in that area. Um, I like their news and updates section, particularly. They've got some great COVID-19 resources right now. Also, it just gives you some basic information about what mental health is and what it means. They've got great stuff on here. There's lots of information. Under the About Mental Health First Aid, you can get to the evidence and the research. And I think it's fantastic. It's just a great, great information. And I really, really encourage you to take some time to check this out and really understand a little bit more about mental health first aid. So, those are the two primary programs in Kentucky that we focus on in regards to mental health in the schools. Now, part of the mental health first aid resources and part of that concept that I just showed you there are resources from them that are directly for parents. And I have included all of these in your handouts today. But what I wanted you to look at is a couple of things. Um, this guide to what works for depression and what works for anxiety are fantastic. I'll briefly show you the anxiety one here. I particularly like it. Um, it's a great, quick pamphlet. It has some great resources. It breaks down the difference between psychological interventions and medical interventions, which I think is really critical to understand. I don't know about you all, but once we start getting into medication and the needs for multiple medications and that medication management, it can get confusing and it can get, it's hard to balance what's what. So this I felt like was a great tool to kind of show you the difference between prescriptions from a doctor versus natural treatments, and what things work together, which things don't work together, etc. So just a great, great tool there. Like I said, there's just some really, really great tools in here for families. Great definition using plain language. You know, after a while, if you have a family member or a person that you're caring for with mental health issues, you kind of get bogged down in the medical terminology and all the different things the doctors may be telling you. This is a great tool to have with you to inform yourself and be able to have more direct conversations with health professionals. The other item that I really wanted to pinpoint is this mental health first aid checklist for intellectual disabilities. I am sharing this information with some of my teachers. I think it's a tool that I was pleasantly surprised to find under the mental health first aid. One of the things that it really goes through is when we talk about mental health, and a person with an intellectual disability, understanding the nuances and the comorbidities or the different things that interconnect, like my brother with autism and Tourette's and bipolar 2 and schizophrenia. It's a complex situation. And this tool really kind of walks through some of those concepts that we may need to address, including what supports a person might need with an intellectual disability and mental health, not within the home. Just a great tool. I think this piece right here, I think it's on page 3 of the document, it goes through how to recognize possible mental health problems with a person with an intellectual disability because they may not manifest the same way as a textbook case. Just some great stuff. I really could spend probably 4 or 5 hours on this. It's a great read, and I'm happy to have further conversations with you once you have time to explore some of these materials. Again, you've been given this as one of your handouts, and if you have any questions, I'll give you my email at the end, and you're welcome to reach out. So those are just some of the components that are available to educators under mental health first aid. There's lots and lots of more resources, and most of the districts that I work with in the OVEC region and in Jefferson County have been through mental health first aid training, and it has been a big push throughout the state for districts to have this training to be able to reach our students and keep them healthy and safe. So that brings me to some of the mental health community resources in Kentucky. Some of those resources include NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Health. The United Way in Kentucky also provides some different types of resources. And then your Division of Behavioral Health with the Cabinet for Families and Children. I wanted to pull that up just so that you can see that regionally they have multiple different things that you can contact. When you click on the link, it'll take you to this page. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, there are 3 highlighted areas. It gives you a crisis line by county, which allows you to get some immediate assistance. It also gives you hotlines and other contacts within your county to be able to get information on where you could receive services. And then there is a suicide prevention hotline that was also part of that information I showed you on the Kentucky Department of Ed's page. This is a great service. It's a really easy way to hop on and at least get started. There's some additional related links over here that primarily deal with adults with mental health issues, but it's a great place to get started to know what's available to you. There is more information here at the bottom about what services they offer. If you haven't heard of Kentucky Impact was an incredibly powerful program for many students that I worked with in the classroom. And it's usually worked with your community mental health service. In our area, it's 7 counties. Up north, it's North Keys. But they provided some targeted case management to help the school and families work together with community resources to ensure that the student is getting everything that they need for their mental health. All right. Please feel free to explore these sections more in depth. I recommend that you spend some time really looking at it and exploring the resources that we have here in Kentucky. We are lucky to have many resources. It's just a process, and I've tried to kind of make it a one-stop shop here for you. All right. So that's kind of just a brief interview of what mental health looks like in the school. It really focuses around that suicide prevention and mental health first aid, and really is a work towards working with communities agencies to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the whole child. So then that brings us to social emotional learning in school. Now, sometimes you will hear this called SEL, but it simply means social emotional learning. So, what is it? Well, this is a great tool. I happen to really love this tool. It's a great graphic to show you what skills do socially and emotionally competent people have. Well, if you notice, we have these rings. If you've ever done any person centered planning or any futures planning, we have these rings that we talk about our circles of support. Well, it's very similar to what we talk about when we have socially and emotionally competent people. We have aligned learning opportunities with our communities, authentic partnerships with families and caregivers, schools. We have those policies, procedures, and practices for kiddos. And then in our classroom, we focus on that social emotional learning and classroom climate to teach these items: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, social awareness. These are all of those components that actually need to be explicitly taught. This is not something children just naturally develop. We have written and unwritten rules within our society that deal with social competencies. Our students with intellectual disabilities and other disabilities need explicit instruction in this area. I tell my husband all the time, in our new age of social media and texting, actually all students kind of need this, because we have separated ourselves from the art of conversation, that socialization of we used to talk on the phone all night. We've lost some of that. So I believe all students need to be taught these areas explicitly within the classroom setting. So how do we do that? I think always becomes the question for that. Well, I'm going to show you this really cool video. This, to me, is the best example of how we start teaching social emotional learning. We teach kids about their brain and how the brain works. It may seem a little like, well, how are they going to understand that? That's kind of complex. Well, watch this video and it'll help explain it a little further.
Hi, I'm Jeanette, and I'm going to teach you what's going on in your brain. And let me tell you something, it's not just going on in your brain, it's going on in all of our brains. Our mom's brains, our dad's brains, our grandparents' brains, our sister, our brother's brains, even my brain. So let's look at our brains, okay? This is our spinal cord. This is the inside of our brain, the lower part, where we carry our feelings. And then this is the higher part, our thinking part of our brain. So let's open our brain and see what's going on inside, okay? So, when we open our brain, you can see I have a little animal here. And I like to call my animal my little lion. You can call your animal part of your brain whatever you want. Snaky part, bear part, whatever your favorite animal is. And in this part of our brain, our animal part, when he gets scared or stressed out or has really, really big feelings, he's going to do one of three things. One of the first things he might do, what would an animal do if he gets scared or stressed out? Do you know? He might run away. And there's a second thing that he might do if he gets scared or stressed out. Do you know what that is? He might fight. He might fight, attack. Do people ever do that? I know I do sometimes. Sometimes I yell really loud when I get scared or stressed out. Sometimes that happens to all of us. And there's a third thing that our animal part of our brain does when we get scared or stressed out. Do you know? We freeze. We don't know what to do. We feel helpless, hopeless, and we just stay there. And we have all these big feelings and we don't know what to do. We can't think. That's what happens. Does that ever happen to you? You know, sometimes that happens to me. However, because we're not animals, right? This is just an animal part in our brain. There's another part of our brain, and that's our thinking part, our talking part. Right. That's the part that can tell us what to do to take care of our animal part of our brain. It can say things like I messages. I feel scared. I feel mad. I feel scared. And it can tell us what it's feeling. And the second thing it can do, not only tell us what it's feeling, it can tell us what it needs. It can say, I need affection. And affection is I need a hug. I need a kiss. And we can ask our parent or whoever is taking care of you to get that need met. And your parent or whoever is taking care of you will give that to you. They may not always give you what you want, like an iPod or an iPad, but they'll give you a hug or a kiss. And there's another A, which is a need, that you can ask when you're having a feeling, and that is, I need attention. And attention is I need someone to listen. Just hear me. You may not get what you want, but you'll get your mom or dad or whoever's caring for you. They're listening, ear, and they can hear you. And there's another need, and that is you can say, I need alone time, or I need a break. I need to take a walk, because I'm having really big feelings. And that's a need too. And you can ask your mom or dad or whoever's caring for you and say, I need a break. I need some alone time, and you can go do that. And that's the third A, and there's another A, and that is, I need appreciation. And do you know what appreciation is? It's somebody telling you you're doing a good job. And we all need that. I know sometimes I need that too. When we can name it, we can tame our animal part and give it love, safety, and feel secure. And we can all do it, and I do it, and I know you can do it. So good luck, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
So this is just a simple way to begin that conversation about social emotional learning for students. And it's really about learning what big emotions are. This can be done for any student. And I think what's so important is this is a focus that our schools are taking. It's at different levels in different schools. You will see this part of it. You'll also may hear something called mindfulness. The process is to allow students to be able to recognize the emotions that they're having, understand what they need and or what is causing that emotional need, to really help students be able to function more through the emotion and be able to process with a person before we get to that meltdown stage.
Hi,
And I do apologize. Let me move this forward. So part of what we have in Kentucky is a program called Safe Schools that teachers work through. They have a short video series that I have linked for you within the handout that you can go and watch those areas that we talked about in the graphic. Self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness. These are some great starting points to begin those conversations with your students. So I'm going to briefly show you the self-awareness, just a part of it. It's really, really great. We'll watch about a minute of this.
For children, learning is a social and interactive process that takes place with teachers, other students, and parents. Our emotions and relationships affect how and what we learn. Students are far better prepared to succeed in school and in life if they have learned social and emotional competencies in addition to academic skills.
We know that when kids have strong social and emotional learning skills, that they are better able to achieve academically, better able to work with others on a team, to collaborate, to manage conflict, to manage stress, to achieve goals. They have better life outcomes. So it's critically important that we take this seriously if we want to educate the whole child.
Social emotional learning is basically the focus on social emotional skills, how to interact with others, how to understand yourself, how to be able to behave in a way that you're supposed to in the right settings.
When we think about self-awareness, we're thinking about how do I know and understand myself, my emotions, my thoughts, my cultural identity. What are the ways in which I feel about a certain situation? Why might I feel that way? How do I understand myself and how I fit into my family and my community and the broader world? We want to give kids opportunities to really think about their own experiences, their own emotions, and how they are dealing with those things.
Self-awareness is really being in touch with oneself. I think as a parent, the best thing you can do is to be honest about how you're feeling, because kids look at us as we're invincible. You know, we're perfect, and we're not. And so I think having honest conversations about your struggles, whether it's at work or, you know, a goal that you're trying to achieve and the challenges that you're having in achieving those goals, kind of brings your situation down to their level, so they know they're not alone and that it's normal to kind of feel these different things.
One of the things that we work on when we talk about self-awareness is helping students understand emotions. So teaching the vocabulary for emotions, teaching students to think about what different emotions feel like, and being able to name that for themselves is an important part.
As teachers and adults, we need to go to the next level. And that goes all the way to junior high and high school. There's things called emotion wheels, where you have all sorts of words that even as adults we can look at and say, oh yeah, that's a great word for that emotion. So really being able to help them identify their emotions is huge and give them vocabulary that's challenging them. Secondly then, what do they do with those emotions? What gets you nervous? Or when do you feel stressed out? Or when do you feel angry? Well, I feel angry when Johnny takes my truck. What do you do about it then? But in high school, the same type of thing applies. If I see my friend Stephanie talking to Lisa or sitting with her at lunch, what do I feel? I feel jealous inside. And then asking myself, is that really a big problem? Is that a small problem? In a classroom, we can model that for kids. So as a teacher, I can say, I'm really feeling disappointed today, fill in the blank. And maybe I'll even take some deep breaths, or gosh, everyone's really loud today. We couldn't go outside for recess. I'm feeling frustrated. I need to take some deep breaths. So modeling that for kids is really important.
Also teaching kids this idea that through hard work that they're able to be more successful, teaching a growth mindset as opposed to focusing on you're smart, but rather focusing more on effort, helps kids to understand better who they are. Self-awareness is something that is constantly growing, and we want to be able to give kids tools and messaging around how to be thinking about their emotions and their understanding of who they are.
So again, this is just a great video series that I've included here for you to kind of look at that. But social emotional learning is really the first step. It's the first step in giving students the skills to identify, process, and problem solve their emotions. Part of those skills then helps you be able to determine at times if students also need some mental health intervention. So when we talk about social emotional learning for school and home, there's a lot of really cool resources out there. One thing that we want to kind of highlight is the Kentucky Autism Training Center has some amazing videos out there. I have actually linked their SEL supports for home and school video in addition to their resources. And with their resources, they have this whole thing of social emotional supports. Now, while the Kentucky Autism Training Center has focused primarily on students with autism, there is some huge items on here that are great for any student and for you as a parent. So these are just some great social narratives coping skills, emotional charts, just some great tools that are all free and accessible to you. Michelle Antle, one of the field training coordinators, has put this together with some how-to videos. So I really encourage you to check this out. I love my work with the Kentucky Autism Training Center because while their focus is students with autism, there are so many resources that they are able to share with us to really make a difference for every child. I've also included our Facebook page with some resources. If you can check out the OVAC ECS page, or just look for me, Amanda Bruce, on Facebook. Friend me, and you might have to tell me you're with Kentucky Spin or you heard me through Kentucky Spin. But one of the resources that our behavioral consultant put together was all of these free kids books for you about social emotional learning. Some are very COVID focused. Others are really just about processing emotion. My favorite, just because I have a thing for squirrels, is the Once I Was Very Scared book that comes with a reading video. It's absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. My other favorite one on here is Count Cofula. That's how I feel today. I feel like I am Count Cofula. Again, I apologize for the graveliness and such. It's just some beautiful stuff. There's coloring books. There's just tons of things here that are all free to you. Please feel free to reach out to me on social media. Our OVAC ECS Facebook page, it'll say OVAC Exceptional Children's Services or Amanda Bruce. You can friend us on either site. I do work on the work side of the social media as well as my own social media. And I'm happy to kind of help you look for individualized resources for your family in regards to social emotional learning. The other thing is the Pathway to Success website. This is fantastic, especially for older students and adults. It really gives you a ton of social emotional resources and ideas, and introduces you to the concept of mindfulness, which are social emotional learning activities to help you process emotion. I love the positive affirmations list and the social emotional learning. I'm old enough to remember Saturday Night Live with Pat, who would say, look in the mirror and say, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. It's okay to have positive affirmations. You know, that was a funny time period. But again, it's really about finding those tools to process our emotions. So there's just one more thing that I want to talk about today, and that's caregiver mental health. And I really want to talk about compassion, fatigue, and self-care. This is an extraordinarily brief overview. But what I want you to think about is, as the caregiver or as a parent, as a teacher, we do have to address our own needs. If we aren't healthy, social, emotionally, or with our mental health, we're not able to really assist those we're caring for in those arenas effectively. So just take a moment. We'll watch this brief video and we'll kind of go from there.
So I'm going to talk today about caregiver burnout and compassion fatigue, which are actually two different things that make up our lives. Here's my little guy. Yes, and just in his day-to-day life of experiencing his normal stressors, it affects him. Ideally, this little guy has some self-care systems in place to help him rest and get back into perspective and to understand his limits and move forward. Now, this little guy, if we imagine that he's a caregiver, there are other factors in play now. He's not just caring for himself, he's caring for other people as well. Maybe he's a caregiver of his own children. He's got 2 or 3 kids. One of them has special needs. Maybe those special needs involve medical appointments or other specialists, a psychologist perhaps. Maybe there's special school meetings because this child's educational needs are more complex. Maybe there's social workers involved. You can see that this poor person is rapidly getting overwhelmed. Burnout happens when we feel exhausted and maybe helpless, feeling that we're not in control of the situation anymore, we can't manage. Compassion fatigue is when we're caring for somebody who has experienced trauma. This could happen in your own home, foster parents who have children in their home who've experienced unhappy things. So when you're dealing with other people's pain, instead of carrying it and just having it weighing you down, it's like they're absorbing it into their skin. It's in there now. They're experiencing it almost like they've experienced that trauma too. You absorb enough of this pain, other people's pain, and it gets really challenging. Your self-care isn't working anymore. Okay, you need some other help. Warning signs to let us know when we're getting overwhelmed by either burnout or compassion fatigue. The biggest warning signs are when we start withdrawing from our family and friends. People get isolated. They lose the energy to be with other people. They lose pleasure in things they used to enjoy. They can feel sad, hopeless, more irritability, just because they just have less tolerance, less patience for life, less energy for complex emotional issues. Compassion fatigue, again, a decreased empathy, a lack of feeling of enjoyment. They're more negative, they're more critical, they're less compassionate with each other. What can you do? The first thing you can do is proactive. Stay as healthy as possible. Health involves adequate sleep, adequate exercise, adequate diet, drinking water. Those things are things that we can do proactively just to equip us, to give us as good a foundation as possible to withstand stressors. Setting reasonable goals for yourself. Understanding that we're not Superman. Setting limits. If it's your own child in your own home and you maybe don't have the resources to bring in a caregiver, that can be really challenging. And having a support system, that's very important for all of us. And understanding that there are some warning signs that would indicate that perhaps there's another level of support you need. If your sleep patterns are changing, maybe sleeping more and more and more, or less and less. If you're getting sick more often, if you are starting to use unhealthy self-care options like overeating or using substances more often than you were before. If you're starting to get thoughts that you want to hurt yourself or you want to hurt the person that you're caring for, those are red flags that you would want to maybe go and get access and support to a psychologist. Caregivers also have access to respite services through various agencies. It gives you a time to rest and breathe in and out, knowing that your loved one is cared for and that you can care for yourself. Some people have a great deal of difficulty reaching out for that kind of support. They feel guilty. But again, this is a part of knowing your own limits. Understand that you can only do so much. We are not super people as much as we would like to be.
So again, that's just a quick overview. I do encourage you, find a way to have a support system. And I can speak from this that I'm not always the best person I will take on more than I should. But respite care is really critical. Make some time for yourself to rest and rejuvenate. If you notice that you are having compassion fatigue and you're not able to self-care, reach out for help. It is okay. That's what our community centers are here for. That's what your support groups are there for. I do understand the struggle. I understand the balance issues. I don't talk a lot about this on here, but I don't just care for my brother. I care for my mother too, who is disabled with an autoimmune complex. So you do really have to be aware of your own social emotional needs and mental health needs to be able to be the best caregiver you can. And I do apologize. I am a big Schitt's Creek fan. I do apologize, but as Moira says, I have questions. If you do have questions, I am hoping that Stella can forward those to me, and I'm happy to talk with you. Or you can connect with me on Facebook, Amanda Bruce. You can send me a messenger. Just tell me a private message that who you are, and I'll get you friended and we can chat. Or you can email me at abruce@ovec.org. I really thank you, and I appreciate you sticking with me today with my graveliness and my challenges. It's one of those things. I hope you enjoy. If you got snow, a happy rest of your snow day, and just have a great day and be safe. Thanks so much.